So apparently you end the season after the first preseason match if the performance wasn't what you were looking for. After Ruben Amorim's first preseason match with Manchester United ended in a 0-0 draw with Leeds, there was a lot of meltdown with the United fan base that I saw all over socials with, Ruben is not the guy to take United forward. He doesn't know what he's doing in build up. The attack looks dreadful. And what I'll say is this, the game was very boring. I won't hide from that. But the reality is it is preseason. These players were just on vacation. They're back now. They played 45 minutes. The second half team was obviously completely different. And the reality is preseason really doesn't matter. Do I want to see some patterns that get me excited for the first Premier League game of the season against Arsenal? Sure. Do I also understand that preseason is just about getting players fitness and minutes and getting ready for that first Premier League game against Arsenal? Yes. I rewatched the game back because I wanted to analyze what Ruben Amorim was looking to do on the ball. I wanted to analyze what Ruben Amorim was looking to do off the ball. I wanted to analyze what they were doing from build-up. Obviously, a big topic of conversation when it comes to Ruben Amorim is the center half inverting into midfield when building up from goal kicks, and we're going to talk about that. There were also some interesting tactical tweaks I noticed that Ruben Amorim made. I just don't think it's all doom and gloom. After getting Bryan Mbeumo done and signed, he's officially a Manchester United player. I think there's some excitement that we can look forward to. Potentially a striker coming in, a link to a goalkeeper. Still, in my opinion, especially from what I watched against Leeds, and need a center midfielder. But it's not the end of the world, in my opinion anyway, in terms of what I saw against Leeds. So I want to analyze it, I want to give my opinions, and I want to hear your opinions. But before we get into it, if you're liking the content, please remember to leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Helps me and the channel massively. We're going to be dropping a lot of content as the preseason continues and obviously transitioning into the Premier League season. There's going to be a lot of content. We're going to be doing analysis videos on every United game. We're going to be analyzing big games in the Prem. We're going to be analyzing games around Europe. So if you like the football content, again, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you never miss a video, and I really appreciate it. But let's get into what Ruben Amorim's United looked like in their first preseason game against Leeds. Okay, so Manchester United obviously lined up in their 3-4-3. They had Shaw, Mazraoui, and De Ligt as the back three. The four consisted of Ahmad at right wing back, Bruno and Casemiro in the pivot, and Diego Leon as the left wing back. Two tens were Toby Collier and Matheus Cunha, which I thought was quite interesting. And then Ruben Amorim played Chido Obi as the starting nine with Altay in net. So let's talk about the frustrations and the idea of the build-up, because this is probably the biggest talking point when it comes to Ruben Amorim's Manchester United. So let's talk about it. So it's no surprise when you're watching Ruben Amorim's Manchester United what you're looking for in the build-up. The center halves in this instance is Shaw and Mazraoui split. You push De Ligt up into midfield with Casemiro. You have Bruno roaming in that 10 role to try and receive between the lines. In this instance, it's Diego Leon and Ahmad high and wide, creating that width. And with Matheus Cunha, again, as he's that connector, he was essentially dropping into these positions here, trying to collect and, build if he could get on the ball, which he did a few times. He drew a couple fouls. He was probably the best player in the first half, in my opinion, for Manchester United. I don't really think you can argue that. He was getting on the ball, trying to make things happen. But there were problems for Manchester United. So what were the problems? Well, when you look at this midfield pivot, it's no secret that neither of these players are going to be super comfortable getting on the half turn in these positions or just simply receiving with their face to their own goal. De Ligt is a center back. Casemiro, as incredible as a career as he's had, he is not a center midfielder who is going to get on the half turn, drop a shoulder, and beat a man and kind of break a press on his own. I'd say one of the bigger problems for Manchester United is they actually lack that profile in general. I think the only midfielder that United have that is probably really comfortable doing this is Kobe, and I think he's going to continue to get better at it. But for the sake of the video, for the sake of analyzing the first half, this is what we had. So what was happening was United were oftentimes looking to go to Shaw and Mazraoui, and because of the lack of movement from the pivot players, there wasn't really avenues for United to break a line and progress. The fullbacks from Leeds were playing quite aggressively on the wing backs. So they would circulate it from Altay would go to Mazraoui. If nothing was on, he would circulate it back. And then eventually what was happening was Manchester United were looking to go long. Leeds were winning every single aerial duel. They were winning the second balls, and quickly United were losing possession and then having to transition to defense. And this was frustrating. I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of, it looked like confusion in what they were looking to do, and that's not ideal. Obviously, they've been training. They have had some time before the Leeds game to be prepared. And when you see your midfield two, obviously De Ligt, not a midfielder, but playing in that role, look extremely static, not really look comfortable and, brave in getting into these areas and receiving, it doesn't really give the line of three here much of a choice. They're almost forced to go long. You can argue that the quality of pass from the three here wasn't the best. And typically it was Leeds that were coming up with the ball, and United were losing possession and having to transition. Now, I don't know if this is just Ruben being, stubborn and he doesn't want to change. I think that there is potential with the center half inverting into that space. But again, what it's always come down to is profiles. A midfield pivot of De Ligt and Casemiro in this instance is never going to work in terms of fizzing a ball into here and then maybe creating a 2v1 over here, or fizzing a ball into De Ligt. He draws in a midfielder and he can play a ball around the corner to Cheeto, whatever. It's not going to happen with this profile. I think we saw in the second half how comfortable the back three was in build-up with Yoro, Heaven, and Maguire, but this isn't going to work. Now, you can hope that the build-up looks different with the different profiles, right? Again, this is preseason, so I'm not going to put too much stock into it. When you look at the game against Arsenal, you're hoping that maybe, in my opinion, it's Ugarte here. Center half, I think it has to be a different profile to De Ligt. I would look at trying to get Eleni Euro maybe getting on the ball. Aiden Heaven, I think, could even do the role here. Obviously, Lissandro's injured, but when he gets back fit, I think you can push him into midfield. In my opinion, what would be a good idea is to, and we're going to talk about the second half, but I would get Dalot into this space. I think Dalot is probably, out of all the defenders, aside from Lissandro, the one that's going to be most comfy here. We've seen him in times in the past get into those central areas. He's really good on both feet. He can receive with his body facing the goal. I think Diogo would be a good idea here in this position. Play him beside maybe Ugarte. You get Kobe a little bit more advanced. You get Bruno in behind. Like, there are tweaks that can be made. I don't think this is all doom and gloom. But again, with this specific setup, with Ruben deciding De Ligt to be the player to push into center midfield when we're building up, you're just not really going to get much joy. That's just the reality of the situation. Another issue I found in the way United were looking to play, especially in the mid-block when Leeds had the ball, was this area here. So essentially United were defending in a line of five, and then it was Casemiro playing the lone pivot. Bruno was looking to jump and kind of lead the press when a ball was played here. Collier would go wide to this player. Bruno would jump into this space. Cheeto would step in. Cunha would step in. Diego would step in. So there was a lot of players being super aggressive, but the problem was with Leeds moving the ball quite quickly, there was often times where these midfielders were running into these pockets and Casemiro was being left to chase. And I think the biggest problem with playing a Bruno Casemiro pivot in the 3-4-3 is when you're defending in the middle phase, Bruno is someone who likes to lead the press. We know this. He likes to be the player to engage, which can oftentimes lead to him jumping, the right attacking mid jumping, the striker jumping, the left attacking mid jumping, and then you're leaving Casemiro on an island here in midfield, and he just doesn't really have the pace to keep up. He needs to cover a large zone, which is not ideal for Casemiro. So I think that there were a lot of problems. There were a few times where, a quick passing combination from Leeds, they would break a line, Casemiro would step in, the midfielder would play a quick pass to one of the forward players for Leeds, and then Casemiro's kind of already made that jump, and just a quick movement around Casemiro here, and he's out of the play. And then again, there's a big gap. It improved massively in the second half with Kobe and Ugarte. I think that they complement each other a lot better than a Casemiro and a Bruno does. But I found that there were a lot of times where Casemiro was on an island by himself because Bruno was always looking to jump the press. And it's obviously a cause for concern, especially when you're going into the Premier League season. If you're going to be playing this Bruno Casemiro pivot, you even look at if Ruben decides to play this pivot against Arsenal, against the midfield of Declan Rice, probably Zubimendi and Odegaard, I think it'll get picked apart. I don't think that this is a pivot that you can play. But I think if we're being honest, the first half, as much as I tried to analyze for the good, there were some good moments from Cunha. He'd get on the ball. He would draw in players as he does, draw in players, and he would be winning fouls, which was good. I thought Leon showed some signs of getting forward defensively. I think sometimes a little bit naive where he got caught. He would get super, aggressive, and then a 1-2 in behind, and their fullback was in all of this space. Again, he's a young player. He'll learn. I think Shaw struggled with progression massively. I thought De Ligt and Mazraoui also struggled to progress the ball. Didn't really get into the game, which is why I think there were moments where Collier took up that wingback position and Ahmad got closer to Cheeto just to try to get more involved and more connected with this front two beside him. And then again, I think the Casemiro and the Bruno pivot, I thought that they struggled massively in the first half. But again, it's the first half of the preseason tour. I'm not really going to put a lot of stock into it. But in saying that, I also think it's not just the first half of the preseason tour. We've seen Bruno and Casemiro, and I thought that they had some success at times in the Europa League, but in the Premier League, we know that, it's a very physically demanding league. I just don't think you can have those two players playing beside each other in a midfield pivot and expect to have a lot of success. So let's fast forward to the second half. And I thought that the second half was actually a lot better than the first half. It was not perfect, but it was a lot better. So Ruben fielded this 11 in the second half. Keaton in goal, who was actually brilliant. Euro, Maguire, and Heaven as the three center halves. Across the four was Dorgu, Kobe, Ugarte, and Diogo. And then the front three was Mason, Hoyland, and Mantato, which was exciting to see him get some minutes as well. And again, it was very much the same when it came to build up. So Maguire would push into midfield alongside Ugarte. Kobe was then acting like the 10 that Bruno was playing. He was more advanced. Yoro and Heaven would split. Diogo and Dorgu nice and high and wide. But although this still isn't ideal, even if you swap these players, although this still isn't ideal, the quality rose in the second half, strictly because of the quality of the players. So there are often times where Euro would receive, and again, I can't speak enough about how lucky United are to have both Lenny Euro and Aiden Heaven. I think the growth that they've shown for their age, they play well beyond their years. And I'm going to get into Aiden Heaven and Euro specifically, but Euro was super comfortable getting on the ball and pinging these passes out to Dorgu. He was fizzing them into midfield. He was playing those over-the-top balls into Diogo to run onto. United were seeing a lot more success with progressing the ball and even just getting away from the goal kicks in general. I think these two players complement each other a lot. I think this is the player that you want to get on the ball as much as possible in your own third. If there's a midfielder that you want to get on the ball, it's Kobe. He can make things happen that I don't think any other United player can in that role. And Ugarte, again, he gets a lot of criticism for the things he's not able to do. He's not the most progressive passer. He's not, I think with Ugarte is I don't know if he trusts himself enough to play those forward passes. A lot of the times he'll go sideways or he'll go backwards. There was a time in the second half where he was in this pocket here and he pinged a beautiful pass to Diogo, who was making a run, and United actually created a chance from it. I'm pretty sure it's the opportunity where Dorgu got into this space and Rasmus blocked it. There was a lot more in terms of what United were able to do. I think, if I'm being completely honest with you, I think this is the three that you start against Arsenal, in my opinion. I think maybe you go De Ligt for Maguire, but then you lose Maguire's ability to play these passes. He's very comfortable fizzing these passes. He has, he's good on both feet. He can play those passes very comfortably. He can play these diagonals. So I would be pretty confident with United's back three being this heading into the Premier League season. Aiden Heaven, I thought, was brilliant the way he was defending these large zones, because actually what United looked like in the second half wasn't even the typical 3-4-3. It was actually more of a 4-4-2. So what it looked like was Maguire and Euro were the two center halves. Diogo was playing his natural position, which is right back. Aiden Heaven was actually playing as a left back. He was defending this entire zone. It was him. Dorgu was playing as like a left midfielder. Mentato was playing as the right midfielder, and then Mason was essentially partnering Rasmus. So it was a full, and there was a lot more, I would say, just cohesion in the side. Obviously, Mount, a very willing presser. Dorgu, again, I thought he was really good in the second half. The way he got up and down the pitch, he created a few chances. He, I thought almost won a penalty. He had a few chances here. Again, Rasmus blocked the one shot, but I thought it was actually really good. I think that Ruben showed some willingness to adapt and change. In the second half, again, it was very much so a 4-4-2 with Dorgu playing that left midfield spot and Aiden Heaven playing that left back spot, playing the pivot of Kobe and Ugarte. I think that there's reasons to be concerned, but I also think that there's reasons to be optimistic. I would love to see United play something like this. Diogo or Ahmad as the wing back, I don't really care. You get Kobe and Ugarte in, get Bruno in his 10 role, get Cunha here, and then if you can get Mbeumo playing in this spot, I think even something like this. Get Bruno in these central pockets. I think Kobe and Ugarte look really good when they play together. This is a midfield three to, I think, help with progression. They're all comfortable with breaking lines. You can either play Ahmad or Diogo at wing back. If you really want, you could put Lenny as the center half. You could move Diogo to right center half. You could have him push up into midfield. There's a lot of things that you can do with this team. Again, I think the emphasis has to be on a striker. You need to go and bring in a number 9, and you need to bring in another center midfielder. But I think with what United currently have right now, I would love to see something like this. Dorgu and Ahmad as the wing backs, Cunha and Mbeumo up top, with Bruno, given the freedom to receive in these half spaces here, and get on the ball. Ugarte as the ball winner, Kobe as the progressor in midfield, and then you have 3 players who are super comfortable with progressing. Or if you want that height, which I completely understand, you can even go Maguire. You can put Dalot on the bench. Play Maguire as that center half. Play Euro as the right center half. Heaven as the left center half. If you want a little bit more experience, you can go and you can play Luke Shaw. Whatever. But my point is, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think there's a lot of reasons to be perhaps upset with what you saw in that first preseason game. But I also think that, the season's not over. There's a lot of time. There will be a lot of time to discuss the negatives of United if the season starts off poorly, but I just don't really think there's a point in being negative off of a preseason game. So that's it for this one. I appreciate everyone who's tuning in. Again, we're going to be dropping a lot more analysis pieces on United and what they're looking to do. Obviously, hoping to bring in a few more signings. I'm interested to see the outgoings for Manchester United. The next preseason game is on Saturday, so I'll be dropping a video on that one as well. As always, if you're enjoying the content, remember to drop a like leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about the game. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next preseason game. Hopefully there's some transfer news before then. But for this one, that is all. Until next time, peace.